Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Our justice system has become so broken and corrupt, in large part because judges and prosecutors feel the need to tout their authority, ego, power for personal gain or benefit because they feel the need to abuse their office or position they are endowed with to be able to use their discretion to disrespect, bully, and even verbally abuse the defendant while they're and violate the victim's rights. Combine that with the jury's ineffectiveness to use logic, common sense, and reason, and being observant to not just what the evidence shows, but exactly what it reveals about the case. Join me as I dive into the story and the trial of Carly Gregg and try to uncover if she received a fair trial as her constitutional rights guarantee, well, whether she should have been found guilty, and if her sentence of 2 life terms without the possibility of parole is cruel and unusual for her age. All while exploring challenges teens face with disability. It seems to me that the judicial system has one mission and one mission only, and that has got to stop. And that mission is to ruin teens' lives because of something that they just don't understand or want to acknowledge. Carly Gregg's case has sparked intense debate and raised crucial questions about mental health, guilt, and responsibility. Before we dive into the details, I want to acknowledge the significance of this conversation. Mental illness affects millions of people worldwide, and its impact on teenagers can be particularly devastating. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've seen some YouTube videos, may not haven't watched them, but I've seen the titles. I've seen the thumbnails about she had a multiple burner phone before the murder. She called her friend over to witness the body, and most of the channels I see and most of the comments I read communicate her as a vicious, cold-hearted monster and psycho killer. Now, Carly's defense argued insanity. What I find so interesting about trials, and put your comments in the comment section below, it's more about who did it or who done it, but about also the circumstances, the different pieces that led to the crime, offense, or incident. However you want to put it, particularly when a defendant is going with the insanity defense. What I found very interesting, incredible interesting, is the prosecutor, during his closing argument, he reminded the jury, you are forbidden to use age, emotion, speculation, and can't assume theories or facts that wasn't presented during the evidence to influence your verdict. And Catherine Newman also made a curious comment. Carly Gregg was not remorseful through this trial or through this entire process. And Carly Gregg knew what she was doing. Prosecutors also acknowledge they have one client, serve the people, and their own job paramount to their office and the position they hold is to protect the victim's rights and gain justice for the victims. Now, who is the victim in any case? The ones who were hurt and victimized the most or affected the most. The victims in this case were, of course, Ashley Smiley, Ashley's entire family, and Heath Smiley. Now, he's Carly's stepfather. The state must zealously represent both the family of Ashley and Heath Smiley and hold Carly accountable. That is their goal. That is what they signed up for. If you ask any prosecutors, they will know victims of any crime, as defined by law, shall have the right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect throughout the criminal justice process, and to be informed, to be present, and to be heard when authorized by law during public hearings. Be heard. There's a problem with that statement. The problem is that the state completely contradicts what their duties and office says that they need to do compared to their closing argument. Give give your opinion in the comments section below, but the fact is that the Smiley family are the victims and have a right to be heard, and being the victims have the right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect throughout the entire process. Figuring out what charges or actions the prosecution plans on taking against the defendant regarding plea deals or anything related to the case, that seems like a crucial part of the trial that the victims should be aware of. Being that Carly's family was the victims, their opinion and input seems to be very important as far as their rights are concerned as victims. In reality, the prosecution and district attorney has a discretion for what charges, how they want to settle as far as a plea deal, and how to prosecute the case, is my understanding. During the initial steps, I believe they looked at the Smiley family as nothing more than witnesses rather than victims. What is the difference between a witness and a victim? I would define it as this: a victim has a right to be heard, was the one victimized, and the people that the crime was committed against. But the witness just says what they saw, offers testimony, and the evidence is supposed to corroborate what they said for the truth of the matter so that they can hold the accused accountable and help get the state a conviction and win the case. Once the state gets a conviction, the victims give a victim impact statement. I'm sorry. Isn't that backwards? Shouldn't the victims be looked as victims throughout the entire trial from first step all the way through the verdict? And they can obviously be called as a witness to offer testimony. I saw when Heath finally testified against his stepdaughter, Carly, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misreading stuff, but it didn't really look like he wanted to be testifying against stuff. Felt like I just got the thing that he felt that he was betraying his daughter by testifying. It even was testified to that he talks to Carly via jail app, calls her, video chats. Now, I am a little bit skeptical that the family, if you asked Ash's family and they would have preferred not to take Carly to trial, to drop the charges and not have Carly tried as an adult, parading her around in front of the entire country, in fact, the entire world, and bringing their family into the limelight. I don't think they wanted that at all. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel that the state cops and prosecutors just might have violated the rights of the victims. Did they ask the Smileys what legal action they wanted to take? Do you want to press charges against Carly? Do you want her locked up? Do you want her in jail? You're the family of Ashley. In your opinion, what do you think Ashley would want? Or did the prosecution take a look at the 14-year-old that killed her mom? She's vicious, she's psycho, she's a cold-hearted killer that's terrible. Because a crime was occurred, even though it's within the family and a family member was attacked and lost their life, they must want to press charges, take action, and go to trial. Now, did the state of Mississippi District Attorney Office just make a decision to prosecute Carly based on emotion, assumption, and speculation that the whole Smiley family wanted to bring legal action? The victims apparently have the right to testify and be heard by a jury and the prosecutors, except when the victims might come forward and say, we don't want to press charges, and find another way to help their granddaughter or stepdaughter to not have her serve an extended amount of time in prison and putting their 15-year-old relative with mental illness problems on display. So, did the prosecutors just contradict their own statement when they told the jury you can't use age, assumption, and speculation when issuing a verdict? Not to mention the Smiley's family, the Victim Bill of Rights. Let me get this straight because I don't want to put words in people's mouths. The jury can't use age, emotion, assumption, or speculation to influence their verdict if they're going to give a guilty or not guilty verdict. But the district attorney and the prosecutors for the case can use emotion, assumption, and speculation to choose to prosecute Carly without asking the family or trying to get their input of how they want to handle this or how the state can help. The mental problems that must have caused Carly being paraded around, all this attention given to this teenager, being in an adult detention center, solitary confinement for 6 months, and now in an adult prison. Yes, it's tapered also to juveniles, but it's really just an adult prison. All the hate comments online that the family must have saw. Probably the hate that she probably got in the detention center. Possibly might get in the prison. I hope not. I hope they treat her with respect and dignity. Did Ashley's family have the opportunity to say no? The last thing Ashley would want is to take Carly to trial. Leave a comment in the comment section below, but it kind of sounds like a double standard. In Ohio, we saw a similar situation with Sidney Powell. Now, she flunked out of college. She tried to hide all this from her family. She, er, she killed her mom, and the family, the victims, again, went to the prosecutor and asked them, pleaded with them, and begged them not to take her to trial. And the prosecutor basically, I don't care what you want or think. We are going to trial. She needs to be put away in prison. There is a philosopher by the name of David Hume who said, you can't draw conclusions from is to ought statements. How can I make the remark that maybe Heath, Ashley's family, Heath and Ashley's family didn't want this? I've got no proof except for this. After the conviction and evidence and sentencing, her family, or let's call it like we will, the victims that the prosecutor just got a favorable verdict and judgment and sentence for, are helping the defendant to file an appeal to get that conviction and sentence overturned. Yeah, that sounds kind of confusing the heck out of me, too. Not to mention, Carly didn't have a public defender. Her family got a good lawyer for her. If she was such an evil child and there's no hope for her, and the parents wanted this, why didn't they just tell Carly, you know what, you're on your own. You know, you did this, you're on your own and stuff. Go get a public defender or whatever. And they got a lawyer for her. Now, I am really confused about this because I don't know many 15-year-olds like Carly that could pay for their own lawyer. Is anyone confused yet? So, in my explanation, it would not be an assumption or speculation to think that the lawyer was provided by the Ashley's family and by Keith Smiley himself. Not to mention when I hear Catherine Newman make statements about her not being remorseful or Carly knew what she was doing. I've seen too many trials seeing teens. How can a teen, 14, 15, be remorseful in the prosecutor's eyes? If Carly would have cried and was distressed in front of the jury, pouting, quivering her lip, using tissue after tissue, and just bawling, and what's the first thing that the prosecution would have said, what Kathleen would have said? Carly is evil and she's manipulative and she's putting on an act, making herself look better than she actually is. Now, if Carly would have listened to her lawyers, paid attention, sitting, trying to understand what's happening so that she's clear about what's going on, Catherine would have said she's evil, manipulative, cold. You saw the evidence. You saw what she did. You saw the videos. There was not one tear. She was not the least bit upset after this happened. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now, another thing that Catherine may have been referring to show that Carly showed no remorse was the fact that Carly refused a laughable, insulting, and ridiculous plea deal. Carly was offered, if you are unaware, a 40-year plea deal. Plead guilty to the murder and will drop tampering and attempted murder charge. Some would say that she should have accepted it. That was a reasonable plea deal. But I, for one, am glad she turned it down. Carly knew what she was doing, according to Kathleen. You know what? I think it's the opposite. I think Kathleen and the prosecuting team knew damn well what they were trying to do and what they were trying to accomplish. If Carly would have accepted that plea deal, as I understand it, she would have given up her rights to a jury trial, a fair trial, and the prosecution would not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Carly was 100% responsible and needed to be held accountable. But most of all, it would have she would not have been able to appeal any sentence. Carly addressed the court when she refused that, saying it's her decision. But, and this is just my opinion, so please leave a comment in the comment section below. I believe she got good input from her counsel and legal team and her family. And my my bad. I think Carly got good input from her counsel and the victims or witnesses or however the prosecution wants to recognize the Smiley family, that they encouraged Carly to reject the plea deal, that it was nonsense. They were trying to get Carly to give up her constitutional rights voluntarily, in my opinion, knowing full well that that her legal team, counsel, and her family would give Carly some advice, some input on what they thought of it, and it was in her best interest to turn down that plea deal. The prosecution wanted to go to trial. They wanted to get Carly convicted, and they wanted to give her 2 life terms without the possibility of getting out of jail. To illustrate how laughable that this incident, this plea deal was, there's another incident. In April of 2021, Sierra Hulseth and her boyfriend, Aaron Guerrero, age 16 and 18 at the time, stole her father, Daniel Hulseth's car, Sierra's father, credit card, and went to Home Depot to get some supplies, came back, stabbed him 70 times, dismembered him, burned him, threw him in the trash. Sarah lied to her grandma. He's in the shower. I don't know where he is. Whatever. Stole his car, fled to Salt Lake City, Utah, where they were arrested. They were returned to Nevada. The state of Nevada offered the two a plea deal. Plead guilty to your crimes, offenses, and actions, however you want to put it, and we'll ask the judge to give you only 22 years. And because Aaron was 18 and eligible for the death penalty, we would not pursue that. Now, I have thoughts about the death penalty. I'm not really for it. But at sentencing, Sierra claimed she was abused, neglected, drugged, and a whole lot of other things by her father. She was even put down by her father, as she claimed. For example, she said that this is what I prefer, this is what I like, this, this is I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'm more with this. And her father would look, you're too young to know anything about that. Now, what is that? Now, what is the message you're sending to a 16-year-old girl when you say that? You're too stupid to know what you want. You're too stupid to know what you like. You're too stupid to know anything about that. I know it's not an excuse for what she did. Daniel family, of course, denies it, of course. I am not saying that Sierra's lying. I'm not saying Daniel's family's lying. Just letting you know the story and pointing out what Sierra and Aaron did was probably 50 times worse than what Carly did. Sierra and Aaron, in my opinion, definitely knew what they were doing and definitely knew what they were on to accomplish. The Carly Gregg trial was just ridiculous. Testimony that came from the state was not convincing me at all. Well, the defense argued insanity, and if there's any lawyers out there, because I'm not sure, but as far as I understand it, for insanity, Carly Gregg's lawyers just had to prove, based on a preponderance of the evidence, just slightly true than not, that she was mentally incapable of knowing what she was doing. But does that take away the state's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Carly did know what she was doing and she was 100% accountable for her mom's death? Miss Todd, one of Carly's lawyers, on a podcast, one of the doctors, I guess, had completely no cap from the prosecution team and asked for $52,000 to give Carly an examination. Will someone put in the comments on how this sounds? Sure, sure, state, sure, prosecutor. I will definitely, yeah, Catherine. I will give Carly a fair evaluation in my honest opinion, but it will cost the state $52,000. Sounds like a means to benefit his bank account more than justice. According to Carly's lawyer, this Todd, they probably won't see that money. But if they did, you know what? I got an idea that people, they may want to figure out if they get a new trial. Carly's mom, Ashley's family is fundraising to help her with her appeal, her conviction and sentencing, and currently trying to get a new trial. If they get a trial, I personally think what they should do is have a fundraiser to raise 100, 200, maybe $400,000 to get a doctor to testify and flip the doctor to testify in Carly's defense. You don't think the state will point out that the jury can't pay a bit of attention to that testimony because the defense bought him off. Prosecution can, the defense can't, which is very interesting and stuff because the burden in any case is on the government. Experts say that she was showing signs of narcissistic traits. First off, what teen at 14 is not a little narcissistic? I swear. I think being a bit into oneself is a prerequisite for being a teen. Actually, I think I heard a prosecutor even refer to Carly as intelligent and psychopathic. I think that's right. What are they saying here? She's intelligent and smart, and the prosecutor is arguing she is not mentally insane, but referred to her as a psychopath. The jury, this is just my opinion, but a psychopath is completely narcissistic. Nothing's their fault. Mentally unstable. Mentally unstable, of course, is not the same as having a mental or behavioral diagnosis like bipolar or schizophrenia. When I hear psychopathic, I look at people like Nicholas Cruz, who went into a school, killed 20 people for his own intention and own pleasure, hid into the crowd, tried to sneak away in the dark, trying to sneak away as they evacuated the school, went into McDonald's trying to further get away. When he was caught, he made up stuff like, I was hearing voices, someone told me to do it, the demons told me to do it. In the interrogation room, he was trying to act like he was mentally insane, like it wasn't my fault, it wasn't me, really. Georgia shooter, Cole Gray, he was, police came to talk to him and his father about some disturbing things online that he posted. No, I didn't mean anything like that. A couple weeks later, he shot the school, taking accountability of what was on the his computer or what he was doing at the time. Ethan Crumbly posted pictures of his firearm and everything, and brought it to school, killed 4 people. And I've got a video on the Crumbly case, both Ethan, Jennifer, and James. You can feel free to watch that in the from my playlist on judicial and trials. Letitia Stout, who killed her stepson and then lied about it, flipped off the some witnesses. We saw that in the Nicholas Cruz trial, where the defense attorneys were flicking off the courts. And of course, Darrell Brooks, who at 18 started a huge chain of events that were just criminal felonies, misdemeanors. And at the Waukesha Christmas parade attack, when he was on trial, made a show of it. Didn't acknowledge. In fact, I think during his elocution or something, he referred to the fact, I don't know why God would allow this to happen. Taking the blame off himself that he didn't realize that he had a temper, that he needed to feel in control. Ted Bundy, he claimed he was innocent all the way until I think about 2 days before his execution. Then came out, yes, I really did it. People that are controlling, manipulative, temper, have nothing to do with respect. They want respect, but they're not willing to give respect to other people. Carly Gregg, in my mind, doesn't match any of those profiles. When did she show defiant behavior in court? I saw a nervous 15-year-old that has mental problems. This case was not about what Carly did, but how did it happen? It was confirmed that Carly was on medication. Her biological father, bipolar, and had a very abusive relationship with Carly's mom and possibly Carly. Carly was 14 and a teenager, and the teenage years can be very confusing, and particularly when you witness your mom being abused or offered a beer at 12, introduced to marijuana by your biological father at a young age by blowing his marijuana right in your face. And obviously, he has some mental behavioral problems and bipolar too. Now, I am not pushing the blame or insulting the father. I'm just trying to really get down to the grasp of the trial. Why did it happen? How did it happen? How can we learn? And is Carly completely 100% to be held accountable? People with behavioral issues or mental illness can also be very manipulated to do anything, especially if they're not thinking clearly or if they don't have a very good mentor to be able to say, you really shouldn't do that and try and talk them out of it. You know, stressed, honey, you're 15 years old, but here, take a puff of my marijuana pipe and stuff. You'll feel better. Oh, honey, you stressed about school and stuff. Oh, here's a beer. Ashley knew exactly what she lived through. She knew what Carly had to deal with, and Ashley knew about her mental problems. And Ashley knew she had a fully loaded firearm under the mattress on her side of the bed. Now, I am not blaming Ashley, but when you're in a abusive relationship and you possibly believe that someone might be stalking you can get very paranoid and not think of things like locking up a firearm and just overlooking that, and you care more about your protection rather than safety for your child. Our criminal justice system is a mess. When people like Colt Gray and or Ethan Crumley go into school, kill innocent victims, what is the first thing that the victims of those people did? They blamed the parents of the person that shot and killed their sons. They wanted to hold the parents accountable also, besides just the school shooters, for the actions of their children. And why? By getting them a gun and not securing it. I would not disagree with that logic. But if a parent leaves a fully loaded gun under a mattress and her teen has mental issues or maybe a possible PTSD thing that has not been diagnosed and gets agitated or feels threatening or just starts panicking, and there is a fully loaded firearm, grab a gun and start shooting and attacking the parents because the parents were victims of this crime, they can't be blamed. They can't kind of be part of the cause. Now this is the vibe I'm getting. Taking that logic, let's do a little thought experiment based on that logic, based on what I'm hearing from other comments. All Colt Gray and Ethan Crumley had to do would be to, after the shooting, kill their parents, and the parents, because now they are victims, they can't be held accountable. They can't even be blamed by the other parents because of the lives that Ethan and Colt Gray took, because the parents are dead, so they can't prosecute. Therefore, they can't be blamed. I took a disability studies in the U.S. course while I was in college. We read a great book called Good Kings, Bad Kings by Susan Nussbaum. It's a book about disabilities, obviously. Social norms surrounding mental illness in teenagers is still rampant, and it's essential we acknowledge its influence on our perceptions of guilt and responsibility. When we think of mental illness, we often think of someone who is weak or flawed, unable to cope with the pressures of everyday life. The misconception leads to lack of empathy or an understanding, causing us to view those struggling with mental health issues as inherently guilty and flawed. I have seen comments on YouTube and other videos. Carly's a psycho killer. She's evil. She's dangerous. She needs to be locked up. She got an appropriate sentence. Now, when I looked and saw that trial, I didn't see a weak or flawed 15-year-old. But what I did see and what I did witness is that, and what I did feel, is that the minute that trial started, Carly was going to be found 100% inherently guilty. And it was her fault. This stigma can also manifest its way in how we talk about mental health, often using language that implies blame or shame. Phrases like they snap, they're crazy, only serve to perpetuate harmful stereotypes and reinforce the notion that those with mental illness are somehow less worthy of respect, less worthy of dignity, and less worthy of love. It's crucial we recognize the danger effects of this stigma, particularly when it comes to teenagers who are already vulnerable to social pressures. The consequences of this stigma are far reaching, impacting not only individuals, but the communities at which they live at large. The jury in Carly Gregg's case, all defendants are entitled to a fair and impartial jury, but part of the law, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is from that area. Now, I am going to probably guess, but I don't believe Carly's jury was fair or impartial. Yes, they were diverse. Yes, they were men, women, black, white. But I believe all 12 jurors went into that trial as empiricists. Now, empiricism is a philosophical theory that all true knowledge is based solely on only our experiences. I am confident none of those 12 jurors really ever experienced someone with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, medicine problems. My brother and I, we keep on getting an abnormal EEG, and I think I just figured out why we're crazy. Anyway, we are on seizure medication, anti-seizure medication, as a precautionary measure. We've never had a seizure. Now, we both started taking Depakote. It affected me physically with my legs, and I just didn't feel right with my muscles and weak. My brother, it affected him mentally, behaviorally, temporally. His entire behavior changed. It got so bad that my father, our family, we had to watch what we said, what we did, if we breathed wrong, if we passed gas wrong, if we hung out with his friends at the wrong time, if we were in his room. Seriously, it was like living with a ticking time bomb. We didn't know when he'd get angry. We didn't know when he would physically attack. We didn't know what would set him off. It was terrible to go through. If there would have been a weapon nearby, and I don't think he would have, but it would have could have been very deadly of episode. Thankfully, we both got off that. We got on a new medicine that seems to be doing the job. But I think it's safe to say that none of the jurors ever experienced anything like that. If I have never experienced that, it doesn't exist. If I haven't seen it, it's a bull. If I don't know anyone that has gone through something like that, or I haven't heard any stories from a relative, they're making it up, finding an excuse to get off scot free. This clouds can cloud the judgment of our reasoning and common sense and lead to assumptions when we only base our experience as true knowledge that can lead to wrongful convictions, like in Carly Gregg's case. In Carly's case, the complexities of mental health are deeply intertwined with the events that unfolded. Understanding her background and mental health struggles is essential to grasping the circumstances that led to the pivotal moment, like not securing a fully loaded gun. All the money that went in that Ashley spent to get surveillance, to legally own a gun, probably because of paranoia or PTSD, to want to make sure that she was protected if some intruder came over unannounced, that if Keith wasn't there. And overlook the fact that you should have gotten a gun vault or safe because they're so advanced. Biometrics, you can unlock it through your phone. But when you are in a situation with abuse or when you're paranoid, I don't think you can think straight. Ashley knew what she went through. Ashley knew what Carly went through. They both went through a lot. Carly probably could have had some PTSD, some depression. All these problems, mental health, and a fully loaded firearm under the mom's side of the mattress, that doesn't scream danger at all. When we think of mental health, we think of bipolar or schizophrenia. But mental health is a lot more than a simple diagnosis. I went to a retreat years ago, and I want to challenge the people that were there when Carly was born. When Carly Madison Gregg went into the world. The theme was living faithfully in an era of chaos. One of the things that was talked about at this retreat is that when we are born, our skin is soft, no cuts, scratches, blemishes. You might have a birthmark or something, but there's no physical scars on that body. I want you to think back, if you're a relative of Carly's and stuff, that amazing day when she came into the world. Our mental health can be seen in the same light, if you think about it. When we were born, think about it. Have we ever been abused? Have we faced stress, experienced pain or suffering or loss? Carly's mental health struggles must have begun at a young age, starting with the loss of her sister when she was 4 years old. It's essential to recognize that Carly's mental health struggles did not just occur in a vacuum. Her family dynamics, social pressure, and personal relationships all played a role in shaping her experiences. However, as it does for all of us. However, it is also crucial to acknowledge that mental illness is not solely the result of external factors. It's a complex interplay of genetic, environmental, and psychological components. It is safe to assume the prosecution, judge, and jury, or even some of the testimony that was given by the doctors, never really experienced what it's like to have bipolar or schizophrenic behavior. Yes, they know the signs, they know the symptoms, but can they really grasp and understand the true nature of these mental illnesses? A lot of times, the doctors are only going off with the parent or with the child or what they're told. that I don't think this medicine's working. I I can't explain it and stuff. I just don't feel right. I'm having some suicidal thoughts. They can only go on what they're telling the doctors, but they can't really know what the person is going through. Good King's Bad Things lays this out perfectly and explores all these concepts. What is so fascinating about this book, it's about 50 chapters or so, but throughout the book, it goes through like a novel to where the situation constantly changes in this institution. But there are 7 characters, and each chapter is a character's specific perception and their own point of view of how the situation is unfolding. I suggest anyone to read it. And you might need an example here. So let's take Carly's case. Now, you might have a chapter on the prosecution, on Kathleen Newman, and our justice system is absolutely fantastic. It works. This case proves that this process works and stuff because we got a conviction, we got the jury made the right call, and everything worked out for the best. Carly would say that, I love my mom. I would never hurt my mom, and the prosecution is just full of bull. They don't know what I go through. They don't know what I live with. They don't know what I've been through. Really. They heard testimony, but they don't really understand. Miss Todd Pride comes on and stuff says this was a totally unfair trial. This is what the appeals process is for, and Carly can't be held fully accountable because one, she's 14 years old, still developing, and has mental problems as was testified in some of the testimony that was given. So that leads us to the simple question. Is Carly guilty? Is she to be 100% fully accountable at what happened? Absolutely not. Did Carly receive a fair trial? Absolutely not. If you disagree, feel free to disagree. Add your comment, leave your comments in the comment section below. I also find it's interesting. I didn't hear a victim impact statement. Typically in homicides or when people attack, you hear a victim impact statement. I honestly think the family should have got up before the sentencing deliberations and gave a family impact statement after Carly was convicted. Right before the judge, and point to the prosecution and tell them how they felt disrespected by the state, that they are just trying to separate our family, and having this trial and having our daughter and relative stripped away from us hurts 1,000 times more than what happened that day. Carly should not have been tried as an adult, in my opinion. And this is complete evidence that our justice system and process just doesn't work. Beyond a reasonable doubt is supposed to be the highest standard for a prosecution or government to reach. And juries today, especially in cases like Carly's and some cases where it's kind of up in the air and maybe they have a lot of questions, it's almost like they go to the preponderance of the evidence. If they can prove their case just a little bit more true than the other, they can find them guilty. I feel that some kind of a victim impact statement, sharing their frustration with the justice system and the prosecution and how they were treated and how their victim rights probably they felt victimized, should have been on the record. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. I am absolutely confident that one thing Carly's mom would want, because she is the main victim in this case, would like nothing more than that conviction and sentencing of her daughter to be thrown out. What do you think? Make sure you check out my other videos regarding mental health issue. But I think to keep Carly incarcerated, to bring this case, to be treated like she was treated, to be verbally attacked by the prosecution, I think was a complete insult to Ashley's memory. And if they want to really honor Ashley's memory, they will drop the conviction, they will drop the charges, and they will help Carly's family get the help that Carly needs. But the help Carly needs is definitely not.
You're given, but it's never too late to spread your wings.